The morning the cornfield was taken, it felt like the earth itself had gone quiet. Ethan Hale stood at the edge of his land just before sunrise, boots sinking into damp soil, staring at the rows of corn he'd planted with his own hands. Corn that had fed his family for years, corn that now belonged to the bank. The wind brushed through the stalks like a whisper of goodbye, and for a moment Ethan closed his eyes and pressed his palm against his chest, as if that might steady the ache there. He could have saved it. That was the thought that kept coming back. 3 days earlier, on a road no one paid attention to anymore, Ethan had found a man lying half-conscious beside a wrecked car. The stranger was bleeding, shivering, barely breathing. Ethan remembered checking his phone. No signal. He remembered thinking about the harvest due that afternoon, the payment he had to make before sunset. He remembered the weight of that choice pressing down on him. And still, he'd lifted the man into his old pickup. The hospital was an hour away. By the time Ethan returned, the equipment he'd rented to harvest the corn had been repossessed. The deadline passed. The bank didn't ask questions. They never do. Paperwork was signed. Land was lost, just like that. Now, standing there in the quiet morning, Ethan whispered to no one, "I hope you lived." That was all he had left to hold on to. The next 3 days passed slowly, painfully. Word spread around town. Some people shook their heads. Others clapped him on the shoulder and said, "You did the right thing," but said it softly, like they weren't fully convinced themselves. Kindness didn't pay bills. Compassion didn't stop foreclosure notices. On the third day, Ethan was fixing a broken fence behind the house when he heard it. Engines, not one, not two, many. He turned toward the road just as a line of black SUV came into view, glossy and unfamiliar, rolling slowly like something out of a movie. They stopped in front of his house, one after another, until the dusty road looked completely out of place. Ethan's first thought was that they had the wrong address. The doors opened. Men and women in dark suits stepped out, scanning the property, speaking quietly into earpieces. One man walked forward, his posture calm but commanding. "Mr. Ethan Hale?" he asked. Ethan wiped his hands on his jeans. "That's me." The man nodded. "My name is Daniel Ross. I work for Mr. Jonathan Pierce." The name meant nothing to Ethan, at first. Then it hit him like a sudden gust of wind. Pierce Industries, hospitals, foundations, a name you heard on the news. Daniel gestured toward one of the SUV. 3 days ago, you brought a stranger to the county hospital. You didn't know who he was. You didn't wait for recognition. You didn't ask for anything." Ethan swallowed. He needed help. The back door of the SUV opened slowly. A man stepped out, thinner than before, but standing on his own. His arm was in a sling. There was a scar along his forehead. And when his eyes met Ethan's, something broke open between them. "I told them to find you," the man said, his voice steady but thick with emotion, "because I wouldn't be standing here if you hadn't stopped." Ethan recognized him immediately, the stranger from the roadside. "The blood, the fear, the silence, you lost your cornfield because of me," the man continued. "I learned that yesterday." Ethan shook his head. "It wasn't because of you, that was just how things went." Jonathan Pierce took a step closer. "No," he said gently, "it was because you chose a life over a harvest." Daniel handed Ethan a folder. Inside were documents, deeds, bank statements, a contract stamped and signed. Jonathan spoke softly now. "Your land has been bought back, every acre, the equipment too, and if you'll allow it, I'd like to fund a community farm here, jobs, training, something that lasts longer than corn." Ethan's hands trembled as he closed the folder. His throat tightened. "Why?" he asked. "You don't even know me." Jonathan smiled, a tired but grateful smile. "I know enough." Silence hung in the air, heavy and warm. As the SUV eventually drove away, the land looked different to Ethan. The cornfield wasn't just soil and crops anymore. It was proof. Proof that kindness doesn't disappear when it costs you something. It travels, it waits, and sometimes it comes back in ways you never imagined. Ethan looked across the fields, the sun rising fully now, and felt something he hadn't felt in days, hope. Because the world doesn't change through loud promises or perfect plans. It changes when ordinary people choose to stop, to care, and to help, especially when no one is watching. And that day, a poor farmer learned that kindness still matters.